Greetings. My name is Guy Dauncey, and this is the show Change the World, where, as you'll know if you've been following this show, I like to invite guests on who share my passion for big picture, vigorous change on the planet to tackle some of the big problems we've got. And today I'm really delighted to have two representatives of the Nanaimo and the Kakwakiwak First Nation. So Emmy Manson, your native name is Saleh Tunat, right? Mm-hmm. Proud citizen of the Nanaimo First Nation, proud mother of two children, mm-hmm. Jesse and Trey. Mm-hmm. Parents are Dean Manson and Faye Thomas. And this is an interesting thing because in English, my upbringing, I would never mention my parents in upbringing, but this is important for you, right? Yep. Parents are, recognize the elders, right? Dean Manson and Faye Thomas, blessed to be raised by your late grandmother also, Emily Manson. Mm-hmm. Emmy's learned the importance of connecting traditional culture with Western teachings in a walk in two worlds. You dropped out of high school to give birth to your daughter at grade 12, returned to complete school, complete a human service diploma at Malaspina, earn a first bachelor's and then a master's degree in social work at UVic. Mm-hmm. You worked with your people for many years as manager of an Indian residential healing program and as mental wellness advisor with the First Nation Health Authority. Mm-hmm. Recently started your new role, which is why you're here today, as Indigenous Education Navigator at VIU, supporting Indigenous learners. And with you, Sheldon Scow, traditional name is Nuyumsa, got it? Your Kawakiwak, no, tell me to get that right, I got it right.
Kakwakiwak.
Kakwakiwak and Dene, and your third year doing First Nation Studies at Vancouver Island University. Wow. So kick this off, what is a navigator?
Okay. We received funding from MasterCard to support Indigenous learners. How our president Ralph shares it is that MasterCard has pivoted to Canada to support Indigenous education. So this money previously used to go to Africa, and because of the TRC recommendations, they're trying...
So I slow you up here. TRC is the...
Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
So there's a whole bunch of calls to action, and some of them are connected to education. And so one of the things that we're excited about is we get to work with Indigenous learners. There's funding for post-secondaries in most nations, but it hasn't increased for many, many years, and memberships have increased. And so many communities have wait lists, or they don't have enough money to fund as many people to go to post-secondary. So we have a scholarship program that supports Indigenous learners to come to VIU. Right. And so our target is 250 students within 5 years. Wow. And we're also going to be working with elementary school and high school students to support learning.
So where are your students coming from?
All over, actually.
All over Canada, all over the world? Or?
All over Canada right now.
Yeah.
And currently we have 62 students in our program. And so our role on campus is to support their success. So one of the things that we know is this challenge for many of our youth, our young adults coming away from community, is the loss of connection to community and to culture, and also around making sure that they feel like they're supported. Yeah. And so how I like to say what I do is I like to say I blanket students with services. So I can help them navigate maybe about budgeting, maybe about financial aid, maybe about finding rentals. So it's not just about the brain or increasing their capacity. You're
used to the term blanket. Am I right to read a double meaning? Yeah. You're also wrapping a nice warm blanket around them. Yeah. So, to help them along. So you're are you an auntie herself?
Yeah, I am actually. And that's actually what I tell the kids. I call them kids, so I'm older than them for sure. Because I was trying to explain my role to them, and they didn't really get it because we've never had that in this campus. Yeah. So I said, I'm kind of like your auntie. I'm kind of like a cheerleader. I really want to be somebody that you can go to when you have success, when you have struggles. Right. And so right now, my job is to walk with them. Yeah. And to check in to make sure that they're doing okay. Right now we're in kind of a crunch. It's near end of semester. This is a really challenging time for students around just getting to the end and all the assignments that are there. Yeah. And so it's been exciting because when I went to school, I didn't have that support. Yeah. And so...
This would be here at VIU and then at UVic, right?
Yeah, so when I went, I was the first generation to go to any post-secondary. So in my family, I'm the first one to have any kind of degree.
And congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And so I struggled through it because I couldn't connect with anyone in my own family about it. And then many of my peers weren't going to post-secondary, so I had to create a new circle. But I think for me, that they can see that I had success in it, that I struggled through it, I was able to find employment, and now I can come and walk with them and share some of my learnings and some of my struggles. But I think it's important for us to identify staff within these systems that look like us, that come from the same background as us, because we didn't have that. And so we have a gathering place where students can go study. It represents like similar to a longhouse. Elders are there, there's food there. So we really want them to have a sense of belonging, that the university is somewhere that we belong and that we have place there.
So Sheldon, did you have aunties growing up back at home, right?
Well, I grew up away from my community.
Okay.
At a very young age, my family on my father's side moved away from our traditional land. That's Guilford Island, that's Muscamal-Exaladeno.
Say that slowly again.
Muscamal-Exaladeno.
And whereabouts is that?
That's near the northern part of Vancouver Island. You actually have to take a boat to get to there.
So it's off the island, it's not on the Great Bear Rainforest side, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you were growing up with a white family then, or with other?
I grew up, my family is native, my mom and my dad, but growing up away from Guilford and my mom's Dene, and that's the Northwest Territories. So yeah, I had family up and down the island, but I didn't have.
Do you identify with Kakwakiwak or with Dene?
Both.
Both, okay.
As my mom likes to call my sister and I'm a Denekwa.
A Denekwa. And how is it like then having an auntie while you're at college here? Because you've been here, what, how many years have you been here?
I first attended school in 2012, but I dropped out.
Okay.
Came back in 2014, dropped out again.
Yeah.
And then 2 years ago, so 2015, I finally attempted, asked for help, and I'm here.
And the auntie system works?
Yeah.
He's not going to say anything.
No, Emmy's done wonderful ever since she came here. She's actually been a great help for my sister, Shelby, because she's been struggling with her first year at university, and Emmy's been there anytime that she needed her.
So you're Sheldon and your sister's Shelby.
Yeah, my parents weren't very creative.
And you've got 4 other children called Shell something else, right?
All S's.
So how are you finding the actual process of studying in this whole university setup?
It's intimidating. My high school experience wasn't very pleasant. My teachers weren't very supportive of me. So coming to school and asking for help was very intimidating. Going up to my professors and saying I'm struggling is very intimidating.
I would never have done that when I was at university. I was intimidated without knowing that that was a word. To know that because yeah, it is a big thing to say you're struggling with something. What about the most exciting parts of the course content you're learning about? What's really got your goat, as we say in English, right?
My first year First Nations Studies, I studied my great uncle, who was the first Indigenous judge in British Columbia.
Oh, my goodness.
So sitting in class and reading the scow name in the textbook really caught my interest.
Wow. Was he one of the ones who sort of sentenced people to be hanged and all sorts of bad things? Or was that back in the Victorian years?
I'm not really sure how to answer that, honestly.
No, growing up and living in Victoria, there was this famous place called Bastion Square. And the restaurant nearby is haunted because the prison was there.
Oh, okay.
And the white judges at the time, we're talking 18, you're talking like a lot later than this, but the white colonial regime was pretty heavy duty, nasty in those days, I think. And I think there was an open declared war against First Nations as well. Like, we're going to turn you into nice white folks or else please disappear, because we'd like your land.
And that's been our experience. Like, my father went to residential school, my grandma. And so for us to use education to empower and to build nations and to build our youth is something that I feel really proud to be part of. Because our families, a lot of our families never experienced education as positive. And so there's a lot of healing that's happened and a lot of awareness for us as the next generation to understand kind of the story, because a lot of the experience of Indian residential school is not shared openly in families or communities. It's really a secret for a lot of families. And so for us as this generation, we have work to do to reclaim our languages and our culture, to really go back and create healthier nations and build nations where we can be prosperous and be independent. And so when we see our young, this is kind of like, for me, when Sheldon's at school and he's building capacity, he's going to be a warrior. We don't have the same kind of lifestyle where we're warriors on the land and we're hunters. We still do some of that practice, but he's going to use education as a tool to reclaim our ways of being. And a lot of students will say that schooling's decolonizing, even though we're using a Western model of education.
Did you say decolonizing or recolonizing?
No, decolonizing.
Decolonizing, right.
Yeah.
In a good sense.
In a good sense.
Losing colonization.
And understanding where, and I think that's the challenge for our generation. We have to walk in two worlds. We aren't going to go back to where there's only First Nations people and we're living off the land. And so we have to balance walking in two worlds. And so I think that's been our struggle, is we don't want to lose our culture and our traditions, but we also want to build capacity with the Western world teachings and use them in the best way we can. And so we're really looking forward to our youth using education to benefit their lives and their children's lives and our communities eventually.
So you said there were 65 students currently in the course?
Well, we have actually a high number of Indigenous students. I wouldn't know the exact number, but that are funded through the MasterCard funding is about 65.
And how many are taking the course in total?
In total in the university, we have quite a high number of university students who are identify as Indigenous, and we include Métis and
but they're not all doing their First Nations
They're not all doing
degree,
First Nations. They're doing
other
all
degrees
kinds.
as well,
They're all doing all.
And some of your courses are in other departments, are they?
Yeah, I'm taking an Indigenous philosophy course right now and first year English.
Indigenous philosophy. Where's the beer? That's probably. Give me one little gem of Indigenous philosophy that you find inspiring from that.
Well, we just discussed this in my class the other day. It's Richard Atleo. We're discussing his book Tesla, and he talks about how nature is an imbalance with the relationship between human and non-human entities.
It's the balance between the human and the non-human. So the humans is us, right? Non-human is the trees, the fish, the soil, the sky, everything, right?
Because we're all connected.
Yeah.
But he's just saying that there's certain rules in nature we need to live by for our Mother Earth to flourish, and a lot of society aren't following those rules.
What rules would they be?
Just respect. You know, it's all about respect. You know, say we go out, and I've never done this, but say we go out and we harvest cedar.
Yes.
We don't take too much. We don't take more than we need. And as we're stripping the cedar, we give thanks. And we're just thankful for the tree for what it provides for us. And everything it does.
I was thinking about this the other day because I do a lot of history as part of my work. I'm writing a book to redefine the whole economy. Like before the industrial age, if you were to cut a cedar tree down using a stone axe and fire, it might take like 5 people a week or something like that. And today with a chainsaw, it's half an hour's work. And so the machinery of modern society almost encourages us to destroy nature faster and to not bother. If you've got, you know what a fella buncher is, those machines that will just go up the hillside and take it all down. It's almost like the machine takes over our souls. And so what you're talking about as connection is like brushed away by the noise of the machine. So you've got to do some conscious awareness around that then, right? It's more than philosophy, it's like a way of being, isn't it?
And we have traditional teachings that are connected to, in my language, it's called Snawaya teachings. And this is something that we're gifted as a family to teach each other and pass down. And I think those teachings really guide our life, like about respect and about integrity and about valuing family and things that, you know, may sound simple, but actually to live them and walk them are two different things.
When I worked in Winnipeg for a while, I was working with an urban native youth group, and they had elders, but they also had pipe holders. The pipe holder was someone late 20s or 30s, and it was their responsibility to guide people to have those values, you know, in everyday, because sometimes the elders, their grandparents, you feel they're a bit distant, but this was everyday decisions, like, do I get angry and hit someone, or do I pause back and think, and little decisions like that. Do you have the equivalent kind of thing?
In our culture, we had mentorship and we had gifts, right? And so we were honed in when we were young if we had the gift of speaking, or we had the gift of medicine. And I would like us to maybe share a little bit our community cousins, because I think mentorship and role modeling is something that creates capacity, but also is a peer kind of support that we are implementing at VIU.
Right.
And Sheldon's a community cousin, and I think that one of the things is around the traditional teachings is we always help the younger generation.
Right.
And if we have gifts, we share them. And so I think that one of the cool things that when I came to VIU, how strong the community cousins were and how helpful, and how they're out promoting post-secondary life to younger population too.
So are you a community cousin to individual people, or is it more a general thing?
It's just a general thing. It's a mentorship program we have on campus at VIU. It's an Indigenous mentorship program. All we ask is you survive one semester, and then you can join. Okay. We're here to support and uplift you through any tough times, not just for school, but in life in general.
So it boils down to you having a one-to-one caring friendship with particular individuals, right?
In a sense, yes, but this year I'm trying to expand and reach out to people I don't know.
Oh, okay. How do you start that conversation?
I look for, I guess, traits I've seen in myself my first year and students I've seen around campus. Very quiet.
That's
very
suppressed intimidation. I'm not really here kind of thing.
They just go to class and they leave right away. Things I noticed about myself my first year.
Right.
So I take them to the side and I ask them how they're doing.
Yeah.
I see how their classes are going, if the course load is too heavy.
Yes.
And then I ask them if they heard about the community cousins.
And generally they will have heard about them or not?
It's about a 50-50. Some do, some don't.
Yeah.
And if they do, then I ask if they're interested.
Yeah.
Usually it's a yes. And if they don't, then I just give them a little insight about what we do.
Okay. And if they say yes, where does it go from there?
I usually get their information, and I just give them the email to my mother, as she is, what would you describe her as? Like, she's kind of the...
She's the liaison for the community cousin, so she leads the programming for it.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we just get that student in touch with my mom.
Yeah.
They have an interview, and then we set them up for training.
And training covers what kind of thing?
Training is, we have to call it training, but it's basically a conversation. We go through our, I guess, our guidelines to what we think the community cousins represent.
Yeah.
We sit down and have 2-3 hour discussions with them.
Yeah.
And then...
Well, that's a lengthy, good time, with a lot of listening and talking then, right? Yeah. When I was looking at the material about the course on the website, I saw that one of the students who was on the West Coast, she said that the community presence on campus was what surprised her, how much it was a community of people.
No, and I think there's a place, and I can't say the gathering place, Sheldon, how do you say it? So it's a building on campus that students can gather in, and our elders' office is out of there, and there's events there, we have feasts there, we do workshops there. It's a study area, and so a lot of the students will come there and meet.
Right.
And I think that one of the things is it's a safe place for them to be. And I think that one of the things is that they get to see other students from other communities and from other programs. So once they're in one program, say for Sheldon, he's in the First Nation Studies, he might not meet anybody from Child and Youth Care. But because we have a gathering place, there's a social place where they can gather.
Yeah. So when you finished your degree, will it be in Native Studies or is it more than that?
BA in First Nation Studies.
And do you have any idea where you see yourself going with that?
I'm going to go apply for a youth mentorship, or internship, I mean, in Victoria, where it's 9 months in Victoria, 3 months in a community where I'm helping an Indigenous community. Working
with, say, the Esquimalt or the Saanich or something like that? Or?
I want to work for my family. I want to go up to Guildford, actually.
Oh, okay.
That's my plan.
You said in Victoria, that's why I thought.
Yep. But it's like, it's Indigenous communities all over. So I could ask to go to Nanaimo or Victoria.
Okay. And as an intern, what would you be doing then?
I can't really speak on that. I just know that it's 9 months in Victoria and then 3 months in the community.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They place you in different places where, depending on your interest and what communities have work. But a lot of it's too in the government and understanding the systems.
So when I first arrived from England in Victoria in 1990, first of all, I should say that the experience of being an immigrant as English in Victoria is like as easy as it could possibly be, you know. Victoria is very English and I'm very white and it's very normal, right? There was no challenge whatsoever. But there was like no recognition of First Nations people. I never met First Nations people in the shops or in the businesses or stores. There was no recognition of village sites or of graves or anything like that. And that's changing now. Now you'll see markers like we, collectively speaking for the white community, are learning to recognize. But it was the invisibility of it was quite surprising to me.
Yep. And there's been talk in our community. One of our elders shared that they finally see us.
Yeah.
And they hear us. And I think that that's the work that we have to do, is to be visible, to share our voice. We have a lot to offer this world, actually.
Yeah.
And I think that when people are ready to be open to that, I think there's teachings that we can gift the world.
I mean, all of us speaking collectively for the immigrants have been here maximum 150 years. What does it feel like to know that you've had ancestors here for 5,000 or longer years? You go, Sheldon. What's it feel like for you, knowing that?
I think I'd be better to answer that question when I go back home, when I go back to the traditional like territory of my ancestors, as I haven't. So I don't really know about that connection.
Yeah.
Like I get bits and pieces of culture from the VIU, the elders on campus.
Right.
And that's got me curious, which got me to learn protocol in my languages.
So you've got a journey of discovery that's just
beginning.
Just beginning, right? But you grew up more
and
with...
I'm way older than Sheldon.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I think for me, what I was taught as a young child was that people paved the way before me.
Yes.
And we were always taught about our great-grandparents, where we came from, what our lineage was, who we're related to.
Yeah.
And one of the teachings that I was always taught was the way I walk represents my family. And I think that one of the really awesome things about Indigenous people is when we do get educated, when we do have things to offer, we offer it to our people. And so many times you'll talk to students, they will say, I want to go work for my own people, because we want to create abundance, and we want to create success in our own nations. And so I think, and that was something that was ingrained to me. And so I always pray, and we have a lot of spiritual practices, but I pray that for my family and my ancestors to walk with me when I struggle, even when I have success, because we have beliefs that they're with us still, and that a lot of the gifts that they gave us are in us. And maybe we haven't figured out what they are yet, but they're here. Right. And so I think for us, our link to the past is very much a real thing. And I think
through the ancestors.
Through the ancestors and through the teachings and through our land.
And the land where they've been on the same land.
Yep, and we have certain practices that we do on certain parts of the land and that are sacred and that we only share with our own family, our community. But I am very aware that my ancestors were able to survive so that I'm still here.
Right.
Because it wasn't easy when contact happened for my people. It hasn't been an easy journey, but I think that we are resilient, we are powerful, and that we have so much strength in rebuilding our nations. And I think that's us. We're the fire. We're the generation that's going to impact the world in a different way.
Yeah. And that's being recognized globally now. I mean, the same thing is happening in New Zealand, in Australia. There's a novelist in Australia I was just reading yesterday, and he said, I'm a top novelist, and I'm living in Australia, and I've never written about the colonization story, which is the true story of Australia is the Aboriginal people got there 50,000 years ago or longer. And where's the great novel about that story? It didn't exist, so, you know.
And we're having more authors who are Indigenous, and I think when I first started school, there wasn't as many, but now there's an abundance, and I think that they're finding their gifts and sharing the stories. Because we're a verbal culture, right? So we didn't write books.
Yeah.
We didn't capture that.
Did you have storytellers in the community?
Yeah, we had storytellers and we had witnesses, and so people who would share the story to generations, there was a role for that.
Do you train your students to be storytellers and to use oral ways of talking?
I think they naturally are storytellers, and I think that some of us have the gift of gab and we can talk to in public, and some of us aren't, and some of us have been able to be really academic and write about it, and I think that we're trying to figure out our way.
I know I lived in West Africa for a while in a village in Senegal, and they clearly had their storytellers, and it was a certain person, and when they talked, everyone would stop and just listen, right? Have you got any storyteller inside you?
I'm finding my voice.
Right.
I'm turning into a public speaker.
Wow.
I'm learning the songs and the drumming of my traditional ancestors, so I am finding my voice.
Yeah. I found that when I started doing public speaking, initially you feel really nervous. Now, that nervous feeling, I've learned to know that's just adrenaline giving me the chance to be more powerful. It's not nervousness at all. We feel it as that, but actually it's power surging up through your veins. Our time is running out here. Anything you want to sort of finish with? You've got all of these people on television watching us, right? What do you want? Anything you want to say to them?
I guess for me, I think for them to get curious about the people who they live around.
Yeah.
So if they want to know about the Nanaimo people whose traditional lands is Nanaimo, about the people of Nanus, that they get curious if they live in Lansville,
Yeah.
if they live in Ladysmith, that they get curious about the Stamanis people,
Yeah.
that we are here and we are alive and we have a culture and we have gifts to share, but also to challenge themselves around understanding our struggle with post-secondary school,
Right.
but also that we're not victims, but we are really
Yeah.
reclaiming our place in this world. And I think for me that education is powerful.
Yeah.
And we're the biggest growing, our numbers for youth is the highest population growth. So we're coming up, and I think that I'm hoping that people will create space and that people will accept and be open to hiring Indigenous learners once they finish their degrees, because we have a lot to offer. And I'm hoping that people are curious about the program we're running at VIU, that they contact me. I'm very proud of the work that VIU's done to create space for Indigenous learners. I think it's fantastic.
That's great.
And I think that it's going to change lives and it's going to change communities.
Sheldon, she's taken most of the space, but anything you want to throw in to add to wrap up?
I guess all I can really say that is, from an Indigenous student's perspective, is we're trying, even if it doesn't look like it. Because it's hard to be a student, but for an Indigenous student to come up here and learn about a dark history they never knew about.
Wow,
then
on top of that, Well, look, congratulations on being a leader.
Okay, like a slash.
Thanks so much for coming on the
Thank you.
show. My name is Guy Dauncey. This has been the show Change the World. And if you want to tune in next week, you'll get hopefully similar inspiring guests like this. For my part, one of my contributions to A Better Future is this book called Journey to the Future, A Better World is Possible, which is a novel set in Vancouver in the year 2032, putting together so many strands of hope and sustainability for a better future. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.